We do have a witness that came forward that told us they saw a male who was acting suspiciously.
And allowed investigators to finally put a name to the image of the suspect. He will never have the opportunity to walk free again.
Today's case is one that I've been following from the very beginning. I was holding my breath as news continued to come out about the status of the investigation into this heartbreaking, brutal murder. But now, thankfully, we have the information we've been waiting for, and I'm happy to share it with you all today. Today, we are going to be discussing the brutal murder of Rachel Morin. Rachel Morin was born May 20th, 1986 in New Hampshire to her parents Patty and Ronald Morin. Rachel was the mother to 5 children, ranging from ages 8 to 18, and among the 5 children, there were 3 different fathers. Rachel was described as being a dedicated mother who cared about her children and family more than anything in the world. She had multiple siblings, cousins, nieces, and nephews, all of whom meant the world to her. She was also known as a fighter, very self-disciplined, motivated, and she faced challenges head on. At the time, Rachel owned her own house cleaning business, which was really nice because this job gave her a lot of flexibility to choose what hours she worked versus how much time she could spend at home with her kids. While being a mother was Rachel's biggest passion, she also loved fashion and fitness. She could be found either at the gym lifting weights or running in 5K marathons. She enjoyed traveling whenever she could, visiting places like Miami, Las Vegas, and Aruba. Rachel was known as the life of the party with a special talent for making people laugh. If you were around Rachel, you were smiling or laughing. She was easygoing, relaxed, and just overall fun to be around. The morning of August 5th, 2023 started as any normal day. She started her day in the early afternoon, heading to the salon to get a touch-up on her spray tan. Sometime later, she and her then-boyfriend, 27-year-old Richard Tobin, went to the gym together at Planet Fitness. After that, Richard dropped Rachel off back home by around 5 p.m. Rachel was last known to be seen walking along the Ma and Pa Heritage Trail located near her home in Bel Air, Maryland. But a few hours after Rachel started her hike, Richard noticed that she never returned and immediately grew concerned. He went to look for her and noticed that her car was still parked in the trailhead parking lot. This confirmed to him that she never left that trail. So by around 11:30 p.m. that night, Richard called 911 to report Rachel as missing, giving them all the possible information he could about her last known whereabouts. For the hours that followed, police, friends, and family all set out to search for Rachel, but their searches did not last long. By around 1 p.m. on August 6th of the following day, 37-year-old Rachel's badly beaten body was discovered. Now, when this case first happened, people thought that the way her body was found was a bit odd. According to reports, her body was found by 48-year-old Michael Gabrzeski and his stepdaughter, Cecilia. Michael did a bunch of media interviews after finding her body, and he described that he was a Native American tracker, so he was very familiar with how to search for a missing person. He had once worked as a National Park search and rescue officer, so these were skills obtained from that job which allowed him to find Rachel's body so quickly. Michael described that as he and his stepdaughter were searching, they went to check 2 drainage tunnels near the trail after he noticed disturbances on the ground near the trail where Rachel was most likely walking. As he headed towards those tunnels, he just got this weird feeling that there was something hidden in there. Michael headed into one of the tunnels while Cecilia headed into the other. Immediately, Michael heard as Cecilia started hyperventilating and freaking out because she had discovered a body. Rachel was found lying naked on the ground after suffering from a horrific, brutal beating. Later autopsy confirmed that Rachel had been beaten over the head, sustaining at least 15 head wounds. She had also been strangled and sexually assaulted. Her cause of death was determined to be the result of blunt force trauma and strangulation. She died a horrifying, violent death. After finding Rachel's body, of course, police started their investigation into possible suspects. At first, a lot of people were suspicious of Michael because of how odd his behavior seemed after finding Rachel. He was very much interested in speaking with the media outlets about it, describing her condition in graphic detail, despite police officers maybe not being super excited that he was doing so. It also stuck out to people that it seems like Michael somehow knew exactly where to go in searching for her. But again, he did have this extensive history of search and rescue jobs, so he was very experienced in finding missing people, and having a bit of an eccentric personality and maybe liking to be the center of attention and wanting his 15 minutes of fame does not automatically make someone a killer. Then, many people started pointing the finger squarely at Richard, Rachel's boyfriend. The couple had only just announced their relationship publicly less than a week before her death. Richard also has a bit of a past, having 14 arrests since 2014 for a wide variety of charges, including traffic offenses, resisting arrest, and disorderly conduct. He was also the last person to see Rachel and was the one who reported her missing. I can definitely see how people thought it was him at first, but the amount of hate he got from the get-go was pretty disturbing. In the hours and days after her death, Richard received almost 500 hate comments on his Facebook, all blaming him for Rachel's death, calling him a killer, and even making jokes about Rachel. It was just horrible to read through, and eventually Richard did come out to say that he wasn't involved and asked to be left alone to grieve. He discussed how he was working with police, gave up his DNA, and allowed them to examine his cell phone. He wanted this crime solved just as much as anyone else in Rachel's family. People also pointed the finger at some of her exes and the fathers of her children. There was this whole incident with the GoFundMe that was set up for Rachel. One of Rachel's exes, Matt McMahon, the father of her oldest child, accused the Morin family of cutting his child out of the GoFundMe that was supposed to be used for her funeral expenses, and any leftover money was for the children. He said that since his child is 18, this child is the only one that isn't a minor, and he was very upset about them not being included in the distribution of funds. The family's attorney fired back and said that Matt's motive is money, he's just trying to make a buck off of Rachel's death, and called the whole situation shameful, especially since all of this was taking place while police were still hunting down the killer. Money wasn't the first thing on the family's mind. In the end, the family attorney said that they ended up putting the money in a trust for the children to use when they're older for medical and educational expenses. But from what I last saw, there was never any proof of where this money actually went. So I actually don't know the status of this entire thing. I believe it's still in that trust, but I don't know if the family has come to any agreements or if there's been any proof or what's going on with that. So again, we really don't know what's going on, but some people looked at this as a distraction from what's really important. People wondered why the father of a child whose mother was just murdered is so worried about the money, but at the same time, I can see why there would be confusion and frustration if your child is the only one being left out, when again, that child is already dealing with enough after their mother was brutally murdered. It's just a whole nother aspect to cases like this that we really don't think about, that, there are children involved, and a lot of times they are grieving, and there is money that needs to be spent on funeral expenses and on the children and helping them grieve. And how does everything get distributed, especially when there are multiple children and are multiple fathers? It's just a whole other side of these cases that we really don't talk about very often. But even with all of these possible suspects in Rachel's life, police did eventually announce that they did not think Rachel knew her killer. They believed that this was a random act of violence, someone who acted alone and has probably committed other crimes before and will probably continue committing crimes until he is caught. For the weeks and months that followed, police worked diligently to track down any leads they could. About a week after the murder, police released surveillance video that they believed showed Rachel's suspected killer. Officers explained that they collected DNA from the crime scene, and after analyzing that DNA and running it through CODIS, they matched the DNA to a crime that took place in Los Angeles, California in March of 2023, so about 4 or 5 months before Rachel's murder. In that situation, police said that this person broke into a home and assaulted a 9-year-old girl and her mother. However, even though they found a match for the DNA on Rachel's body to another crime, they were not able to positively identify the suspect. So going back to the video that they announced, this video was from a home security camera located in California, and it showed an unknown Hispanic male exiting the house and walking off. He was shirtless and carrying some sort of bag with him, but he does not turn towards the camera or show his face at any point. Police explained that this suspect most likely entered the home from the back door or some other way that the front doorbell camera didn't capture. He then attacked the family inside, who police say were two older individuals who couldn't really defend themselves. But then a younger family member entered the room and surprised the suspect and was able to push them out of their home through the front door. You see in the doorbell camera as someone's arm reaches out of the door to push the man away before he flees. The family then immediately called the police to report what happened. Police released this footage asking the public for any and all tips they had about this individual. They said that he most likely has ties to the California area, but he probably has committed crimes in at least 10 different states. After releasing the video, police conducted over 100 interviews and the department received over 1,000 tips. This led them down all sorts of different avenues. They were pointed to all sorts of different places, including different states. So they worked with multiple other federal and local agencies to nail down an identity for this suspect. After months of investigation and following every lead they received, by February 12, 2024, police were able to release a sketch of their suspect. Police were able to put the sketch together by speaking with the victims in the California assaults. They spoke with witnesses who were in the area at the time when Rachel was murdered, and they had the sketch artists look at that doorbell footage to identify certain characteristics they noticed and put it all together. With all of that put together, they were able to come up with a sketch that they believed was as close as they were going to get to their suspect.
We didn't have a sketch up until just last week that we had a high level of confidence in. So using the video, talking to people out in the Los Angeles crime scene, and talking to people here who saw a person along the trail who could be our suspect, we now have a high degree of confidence that that sketch accurately portrays the suspect.
Police have also released new information suggesting the suspect may have been here in the Bel Air area for weeks leading up to the killing. Witnesses spotted someone matching that description in the week leading up to the murder.
We do have a witness that came forward that told us they saw a male who was acting suspiciously in the immediate area of the trail where Rachel was attacked, on a ridgeline looking down immediately before the attack occurred.
Another sketch also depicts the suspect in a red hat, like the one he left behind during that savage attack on the West Coast, which produced the DNA match to the murder here along the trail.
As police worked to follow up on any leads they received from the sketch, they were also working with the DNA found at the various crime scenes to see if they could track a suspect down using family lineage. And the way they were able to attach a name to their suspect is actually really freaking cool. First, police worked with Ortham, a company that uses DNA sequencing to build a profile of what the person most likely looks like based on their lineage, nationality, and other characteristics that can be found in your DNA. Using that, they used the DNA to find possible relatives of their suspect. Thankfully, police were able to track down relatives of the person whose DNA they were sequencing and went to speak with them. This led police to officially identifying their suspect as 23-year-old Victor Antonio Martinez-Hernandez. Investigators found out that Victor is originally from El Salvador, but he illegally crossed the border into the U.S., fleeing from his home country after allegedly murdering another young woman. That's right. Back in El Salvador, authorities state that a young woman left the bar with Victor and she was murdered shortly after. He's actually currently being charged with her murder in El Salvador. After entering the U.S. back in early 2023, apparently Victor was sent back across the border and into Mexico on 3 different occasions in January and February of 2023, but obviously he kept finding his way back in. Authorities have said that he is known to have spent time in Maryland, Virginia, California, and Oklahoma while in the U.S. When speaking with Victor's relatives, they said that he started staying with them in December of 2023, but left in May of 2024. They gave the authorities some of the clothes that he left at their home, and sure enough, the clothing items matched the DNA found at the various crime scenes. After finding out Victor's identity and speaking with family members, they found that he was in Tulsa, Oklahoma at that time. They worked with authorities in Tulsa, and finally, after 10 months of a grueling investigation, by June 14th, police apprehended Victor and arrested him on suspicion of the murder and rape of Rachel Morin. He was first booked into a jail in Tulsa before being extradited back to Maryland, since that is where his most severe crime took place. He was indicted by a grand jury on his charges and was denied bail. As of right now, he is awaiting his trial in jail.
Victor Antonio Martinez-Hernandez was arrested Friday for violent assaults and a murder in the United States. Each of the alleged crimes committed against women. The suspect put up no fight when he was confronted by federal agents and police in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
The lead we received was related to DNA evidence and allowed investigators to finally put a name to the image of the suspect in the video from Los Angeles, which we released 2 weeks after Rachel's death. After we had the video, we knew what he looked like. We knew what he looked like, but we didn't know who he was. With the new DNA evidence, now we know who he is, but we still didn't know where he was. Over the past 2 weeks, investigators continued their diligent investigation and tracked our suspect all the way from Prince George's County to Tulsa, Oklahoma. 5 hours after meeting with the family, and just before midnight our time, police in Tulsa, Oklahoma, assisted by our federal partners, located and arrested Rachel's murderer, Victor Antonio Martinez-Hernandez. We all suspected that perhaps Rachel was not his first victim, and it's my understanding that this suspect, this monster, fled to the United States illegally after committing the brutal murder of a young woman in El Salvador a month early in January of 2023. Once in our country, and likely emboldened by his anonymity, he brutally attacked a 9-year-old girl and her mother during a home invasion in March of 2023 in Los Angeles. And as everyone I believe is aware, that was our first DNA match linking Rachel's case to the Los Angeles case.
Police have now said that they still don't know a clear motive for the murder. They still don't know if this was a targeted attack or if it was completely random. They did say, though, that he spent quite some time in Bel Air. He even worked 2 different jobs there, though officers wouldn't say where he worked. He also has friends in the area who've been able to stay under the radar. So with how much time he spent there, it's possible that he may have seen Rachel during her day-to-day routines. It's possible he'd been watching her for some time before attacking her.
Witnesses spotted someone matching that description in the week leading up to the murder, which leads them to believe he had already planned out an area to commit such a crime. And he likely would have previously seen Rachel running there, as she did so on a regular basis. The suspect was even spotted there on the day the mother of 5 disappeared.
Police are still asking for the public's help with any information they might know. Of course, the more they learn about their suspect, the better picture they will have overall of this entire case. I will list the contact information for the Hartford County Sheriff's Office below if you do have any information or tips that you want to share about either Rachel's case or about any of the crimes Victor is accused of. Of course, Rachel's family is relieved to know that her murderer has been apprehended. The prosecution is looking for the max penalty on this case, which is life in prison. Of course, Rachel's family is happy to know that the state is trying to get this sick monster behind bars as long as possible. They do want to see him in prison for the rest of his life so he's never able to hurt another woman ever again. For now, police have said that they're not going to be releasing too much more information about this case. They are still investigating, but to maintain the integrity of the investigation, they're going to keep any new information close to the vest. From what I last saw, Victor is not due back in court until October. I imagine we won't hear much more about this case until it goes to trial, but I do think, or at least hope, that at that time, we will find out everything we need to know about this case and everything we need to know about what Victor has done. Obviously, there are still a lot of questions, a lot of loose ends. There are also a lot of people speaking out about this case in relation to the fact that Victor is an illegal immigrant. That is something I won't be getting too much into. I don't think it will help this case either way. Obviously, Victor is already here. He already did what he did. There's no way we can turn back time. Obviously, this is an individual who never should have been in this country, especially since he was fleeing a murder in his home country. But that doesn't speak to most other immigrants who enter the country undocumented. That is all I will say about that. But as of right now, that is all I have on today's case. It is truly such a relief to know that the person responsible for this brutal, violent murder is behind bars and isn't able to do this to anybody else. Rachel's family is pretty confident that Victor has even more murder victims than we know of, and I would have to agree. I think there's probably even more to this story, and again, as police continue investigating, I hope they uncover everything this sick piece of trash has done. But that is where I'm going to end today's video, and now I want to know what you all think. What do you think of how this investigation went down? Do you think Victor will plead guilty, or will this go to trial? Do you think he'll be convicted? And do you think there are more murder victims out there? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you liked this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn that notification bell on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure to follow my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.